people have messaged me, reach out to me about it. Like, and when I see people around town or friends that I run into, like, what are you doing? Like, what is this storytelling thing? Like, it's so cool. So it's generated a lot of conversation for me on a personal level. So
how many conversations have you guys had where they're like, did you lose your job? Is this like we're trying to do this place?
Is this some crazy entrepreneur?
John, you're a great photographer. What happened? No, it's okay. I'm still doing that. Yeah, it's okay. And welcome to the Imperative Narrative Podcast, the show by storytellers, about storytellers, and for storytellers. We're your hosts, Kurt Camphausen
and Lucas Arnold. Today we are joined on the show by Rachel Sims and Jon Yoder from The Way We Are. Yeah. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here.
So tell us a little bit about, as we get started, what is The Way We Are? And how did you get started?
The Way We Are is just a local storytelling group about just capturing the personalities and stories in Arkansas. I guess how it started was I've just always been fascinated by stories, and stories feel like they make the most impact, and they are the things that kind of take you out of your own space and just give you a different perspective. And I've been moved by movies, art, like many different stories that I hear over the years. And I've always been drawn to photography. So I just was always looking for a way to marry those together. And it's kind of how this all started.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was looking at some of your posts today and I was like, man, we're doing a storytelling podcast. And literally you have your photo and a story just right there in the caption. I was like, couldn't be more perfect for
Wait a second. I have seen today's. Okay. I lied earlier. I thought I hadn't seen it. I've totally seen it. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, now the audience knows that
I'm a mega fan.
Yeah.
It's true.
Mega fan stuff.
I confess. Okay, so real quick. So you guys, what do you do I mean, you don't have to go into great detail, but this is not like a full-time job for you guys. This is something on the side. So what do you guys do for a living outside of this? And how did you guys connect and meet up?
I'm in communications for a behavioral health company, and I've been doing that for about a year and a half-ish now. And I met Jon, I guess we met about a year and a half ago, because that's when you moved to Little Rock. And so we've been friends, just same mutual friend group, and he was always like the cool, funny guy who like always wore flip-flops for some reason. Everyone was like, this guy, he always wears flip-flops, but you don't wear them as much as I thought you did. Your reputation preceded you.
New information.
Oh, man.
So anyway, so we met and then hung out for a while. And I guess really last fall, September, October was when Jon came to me and said, hey, I have this idea for a project. And really was his vision, something you'd be thinking about for a while, and was wondering if I'd be interested in collaborating. Anyway, so that's a little bit about what I do.
And I'm a wedding photographer, and I've been doing that full time for about 6 years now, and just recently moved to Little Rock. And yeah, it was just kind of a passion project that I had for a while, but it was something that I couldn't quite manage all by myself. So Rachel's always been a very communicative person and always asks strange and interesting questions about people. Like, what are your top 3 favorite foods? Or weird questions like that. She would just ask in regular conversation. And so I just asked her if that'd be something she'd be interested in doing. And she said yes. And then from there, we just planned for months, and then kind of started off with just our closest friends just to see kind of what it would take and what kind of stories we would get from people. And then from there, we've just been branching out to strangers and friends or soon to be friends.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. How do you, that's something I was thinking about, is how do you go about picking who you're going to choose in a story? Is it more like a natural thing where you hear somebody's story and you're like, that would be great? Or is it something that you're like, maybe I'll talk to somebody, interview somebody? Because obviously with strangers, you don't know their stories before you go to them and you say you're branching into that. But what is usually the process for figuring out who you're going to interview and talk to?
We started out by just generating a list of our friends. Honestly, we just experimented, invited a bunch of people over, said, hey, you guys, we have this idea, and we're just going to tell stories, and it was really fun. And of course, our process has evolved and gotten better since then. And we halfway, you know, we have this, when I have this balance of believing that there's beauty in the mundane, like everybody has a story and everybody has multiple stories. And sometimes the hardest part is choosing, after an interview, choosing which one to use, because people tell multiple. And so we want to balance that with these people that we intentionally go after, and we know what they're doing in the community. We know who they are, maybe a little bit more high profile, or just a little bit more of a like, wow, like stop in your tracks kind of story. So we want to go for both and find the beauty in the mundane, but also highlight people that are really working in the community and can be a source of inspiration to other people. And yeah, we have interviewed some strangers recently, which is really fun.
I love it. And I'm going to look at my phone now just to quote this, but I saw on y'all's Facebook page, you said, it says spreading empathy and community through storytelling in Arkansas. So I guess just dive into that a little bit. Like, why? Obviously, you're a photographer, you're a good writer. Like, it's sort of like the two kind of marry each other really well. But I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, where it's kind of a short story form posted through Instagram or Facebook. Are those the two main ways? Or do you guys have like an actual blog? On a website?
We are kind of branching out to the blog.
Okay.
But right now that's still work in progress. But yeah, we're kind of looking at all the mediums and just seeing which communicates the best. And it's kind of more than just the idea of sharing stories, but also to figuring out how, as a community, we can grow together. Mm-hmm. And I see in news and media all the time that there's so much divisiveness. And this is kind of about just kind of seeing what makes you as an individual and just kind of helping like create conversations in community and knowing each other. So it's kind of more about that idea more than just like a Facebook page, or more than just trying to get a cool picture, but
right.
Kind of just trying to see where community can be built.
Right.
And then using the best methods that we have to get there.
Right. And I love it because it's like, I mean, like you're talking about, you know, there's beauty in the mundane. You're kind of giving a high profile in a way to people who otherwise wouldn't be given some sort of, you know, status online necessarily. And I'm sure like for them, some people may just feel like rock stars, like, oh my gosh, there's this whole post. And you guys have, I mean, this has really taken off. I mean, what were your expectations going into this? You guys have, like we talked before, you guys have almost 800 followers on Facebook alone. Like when you went into this, were you thinking this could really be something, or just, we're just going to see what happens?
Yeah, I think starting out, I just think good stories kind of share themselves. And then kind of one of the first ideas I had was that like the story by itself would be awesome. And then hopefully the picture by itself would also be intriguing. So kind of have both of those avenues. It's just very freeing to see perspectives that you wouldn't before. Even interviewing some of our friends, like we're finding things that from knowing them, in some cases over 10 years, and I'm finding out like stories behind who they are that I just didn't know before. And that's been awesome. And I think that's kind of a big part of how it's grown so fast.
I interviewed my little brother. He has two little stories so far. One's just him and one's him and a group of friends. But when I said, even just the intentionality of me setting up and saying, hey, Jon, I want to interview you like for my project, and we're going to meet tomorrow, and like giving structure and letting them know right off the bat that they're valued. Like you're saying, like your voice matters and what you have to say matters. And we're going to make something of this. I was blown away by what he had to say. Like most of the time, he's like 14-year-old boy. Like the other day on my birthday, I was out of town. He called me and he's like, happy birthday. I was like, thanks. And then
I was in the middle of drinking water when he said, just cut that out. Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Yeah, he was like, I was like, thanks, thanks for calling. He's like, no problem. And like, that's how he functions like normally. Like, but then whenever I'm saying, hey, I want to get some stories out of you, he shared some beautiful, deep things. And it's just really neat to like people or strangers that you don't know. When you tell them, hey, there's a purpose to this, people are so ready to go deep and to connect. But we often have these social norms that keep us from doing that, like and insecurities and things. But when you kind of make it, like formalize it, they're ready, they're willing. For the most part, people are really excited to connect because that's something that our culture really craves and really needs right now.
Yeah. So you found it to be easier to get some of these like deeper, more personal stories to get out, like to bring that out of people. And if not, like how do you go about doing that? Especially for some, you say you're interviewing strangers. What's the process with that? Like,
so we do come into the interviews with a list of questions in mind. Now, sometimes I know kind of where I'm wanting to go with it because I know their story, but if not, like I literally, even just a simple question, like, hey, tell me your story. That throws people off. They don't, they're not asked that in that way very often. So they usually start at the beginning. Well, I was born in this and this. They kind of go through these highlights and these peaks and these valleys and moments in their lives. And as far as like vulnerability, like so far the people I've talked to that I didn't know well or didn't know at all beforehand, I've been shocked. I have been shocked at what they've shared. And I've even said like, do you want me to send this to you before we post it? I'm like, no. Like, like, wow. So I mean, maybe we just lucked out so far, but some people have shared some really deep, I think of Kalia, is that her name? The girl that shared about the racial, that story about kind of racial injustice, just, crazy stuff. And she was someone you just met on the street, right?
I met her at the park, and interviewing strangers has kind of been another encouraging thing because initially we kind of started off with just lists of our friends or people we knew that we thought their lives were fascinating or people that were doing good in the community and we wanted to highlight them and their story a little bit. But then I've met like a handful of people just randomly on the street and have been able to get some amazing stories from them too. So I think that's a pretty awesome testimony about just how many good people are around. And most of the time we just might not know about them.
I don't think I would have the guts to like meet someone in the park. Just meeting them, like, let alone being like, hey, can you be a part of this project? Oh man, you are a brave man, Jon.
It's really cool. There was one girl at the tech park that I saw. She had this really interesting sticker on her laptop. Literally, that was the only thing that drew me to her. And I saw her several mornings in a row. I was like, I just need to talk to her. And she was one of these people that we haven't posted her story yet, but just incredible journey that she's been through. And but literally nothing other than that little sticker drew me to her. And I just sat down across from her and she's like, I was like, so I have this project and launch into this. She was like, that's great. Yeah. Let's meet tomorrow morning and talk. And it kind of, I was nervous and I was like, this is weird. But I think that like the things that you take a risk for are the things that you really love. And, the things that you cherish because you've put yourself out there and it means something to you. And kind of circling back around to the idea of like, connection and authenticity and vulnerability. Just today I was reading an article in Forbes, it was for work, related to this really epidemic of loneliness that's happening in our country and really in lots of places in the West or developed countries where we're more like connected, technically speaking, socially and digitally than ever. But the number of close relationships that most Americans see themselves having, like close friendships, people they could call in a crisis, has like been steadily declining since the 50s. And that, I know it's really complicated and multifaceted, but people really crave connection and significance and belonging. And so when you give them a platform to do that, even with a total stranger, you kind of have to have something like this project to approach someone, right? Because if you do that randomly in a park or a coffee shop, it's kind of weird. Like our society has evolved to that point where it's not socially acceptable really to do that, which is a shame.
Yeah, and to add to that a little bit, like I'm not an extroverted, outgoing person, but it's kind of something where if you put yourself in this situation enough, it kind of becomes more normal. And I think you could do it too.
I'm sure you could.
I need you by my side if I ever tried it. So what has been like your, obviously every story is important and we don't want to minimize anybody's story, and everyone I've read, which has been just about all of them, has just been incredible. Because I love the ordinariness. I know that's not a right term of it. Because I mean, like, we're all ordinary people. We're not like these huge celebrities. We're just living a normal life. And so many people can relate to that. But what are maybe some of your favorite stories that you've gotten to share through The Way We Are?
The Kalia story I thought was really neat. And she just shared some really impactful things to her. And I kind of didn't expect her to share that much so fast. And then my friend Rachel was just sharing about her perspective being a nurse and kind of how she got to that point growing up. There's a handful of ones, and there's several stories I've read like 5 or 6 times just over and over again, and they're still impactful.
I loved what my little brother had to say. I know I referenced him earlier, but it was just so mind blowing to me that came out of his mouth, you know?
Yeah.
I really liked my friend, Becca Youngers. She actually approached me. I posted on like Instagram, hey, I'm doing this new thing. She was like, hey, text me. I need to tell my story. And she had this really crazy, very dangerous brain tumor that she survived and went through surgery last fall. So just seeing her, first of all, like witnessing that through that time, and then getting to see, like, share it and tell it on something that I did was really cool. So that was a really just impactful story and opportunity for me.
That's very cool. And obviously you're pairing stories with some awesome and beautiful photography. So I want to kind of talk about that for just a minute, because I've noticed that they're not just all, they are all portraits, but they're all very unique in how they're taken. Like, you have the ballet dancer in a full out dance whenever she's in her portrait. You have the guy in his van that he's been living out of, and so everyone is very it's very personal to them and their story. What, like, part of the process is that, and how do you go about, obviously as the photographer, choosing what you want to do or capture for their story?
It's kind of hard sometimes. I always do the photos last after hearing their story, to see how we can incorporate it or how to visually tell some of their story. A lot of times there's not a crazy backstory to how we got to that setting, but I'm always seeing like how I can incorporate more layers and be more creative with it. So yeah, the dancing ballerina one was awesome, and
she was so great. We made her jump like 40 times. We're like, okay, do it again. Like, but she's been photographed her whole life, so really amazing dancer.
And we'll throw some of these ones that we're talking about up on the video,
cool.
Sure, to show that.
Sorry, audio people.
Yeah, you'll just have to jump over to the YouTube channel and check it out there, or just go to The Way We Are.
That's right.
And subscribe there, and you'll be able to see all the photos. So, are there, like you said, looking, all stories are unique, even the mundane things like that. But are there certain qualities that you look for? You said you got sometimes multiple different stories from people. Are there certain qualities that you're looking for, or pieces of the story that you're like, that's what we're looking for?
It's a great question. One that comes to mind as an example is we interviewed our friend Susan, and she talks in her story about working in the service industry and how much it's changed her. She's worked at Samantha's for a long time. She had also told which we should do this on our blog, like have like the extra bonus material there, because we get a lot of great stuff. But she talked about a funny experience she had traveling abroad. It was hilarious and like horrible, one of those crazy travel stories. And I was really torn. I texted John and several people, which one should I do? And we chose the service industry one because it was about personal transformation. The other one was entertaining and great and would have been fine to post, but we tend to gravitate towards ones that are going to impact somebody in a way that they could learn from it or be inspired by it. And she just had a really unique perspective to offer. But when we met, she wasn't intending on sharing that service industry one, that just kind of happened. So
yeah, it's really the ones that kind of tell the story just beyond the surface that we're really drawn to. So generally when you're approached, you kind of have like a layer of protection where you don't want to be vulnerable. You want to present your best self. And those are kind of the stories we want to avoid more, because we want to know about people.
And you want to dig deep.
Yeah, the deeper stories. So we've done a few of our friends that have shared some cool travel stories, kind of starting off. But more lately, we're trying to focus on just kind of what makes them who they are, more than like what they've done or cool trips.
So can we expect some autobiographical posts?
I'm not sure. We'll see. We're kind of
dig down deep with John.
Yeah.
Let us know all.
We can start that just like right now. We'll start the interview. And
That's
then
right.
use this as
This is why we brought you on
as
the
your
show
template.
today.
Yeah.
It's the real
Write up
reason.
your story.
Yeah. We'll give you our notes and questions to ask.
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
I will photograph you.
Those.
That's a great idea. We should definitely think about it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So have you guys taken, because this is a new thing for me, but have you guys taken inspiration from other like blogs or?
Yeah, for sure. There's Humans of New York, which is kind of
yeah.
the biggest example. Whenever I'm trying to explain what we're doing quickly, I'm telling the Arkansas version of Humans of New York, because we have so many big ideas about this that it's kind of hard to talk about in like a 10-second elevator pitch.
And that's a cool, yeah. I love Humans of New York. That's really neat.
Yeah. And I love how too, like, obviously our photos look so different and the stories feel different, but there's some similarities. Just we talked at the beginning about like formatting, like visually, what does it look like to lay the story out on Instagram and Facebook? And we went with the same style of just direct quotation. The stories are pretty much verbatim. And, you know, people hem and haw and like a lot, you know, in their conversations. So we edit for clarity but we keep the voice and as much as possible word for word. So that immediate cut to the chase, raw perspective of that person is something we've adopted from them, which I think is really cool.
And for the record, I just love the R in the name. It's really cute. I like that.
That was one of those things.
Arkansas
I just remember we had so many meetings, like brainstorming and planning and dreaming, and it's so hard to name things. I mean, you guys know this. As creators, the name is often the most difficult part. You can just...
As someone who named my company after my own first name, I'm the least creative out of the four of us. I can tell you that.
No,
Sorry.
I'm in the same boat with
Yeah.
my name, John Yoder Photography.
It's
pretty
hard.
original.
Today, you know, there's LLCs for everything, and you
Yeah.
just
It's
very tough. So I don't even remember whose idea it was. Honestly, I really don't. But I just remember it happening, and we both look at each other. We're like, "That's it," you know, like it just
Yeah.
it was
That's
perfect.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Mhm.
And even the photos, I feel like they capture Arkansas. Like I just feel like it has this homey, natural feel to it. In both in the stories and the photos, they just feel very much like this is right around the corner type thing. You know, it's really cool. So, what are some goals or future plans for this that you can share?
Well, I think the difficulty is deciding which way to go because we could go so many ways. So it's partly growing, continuing to let it grow organically. We've done very little, I feel like, in terms of like really trying to get more followers. Honestly, it's just been, we put the content out there, people like it, they connect with it. And so that's been encouraging to see people, you know, they have no reason not to enjoy it. It's all it is. It's just a story. There's no ad, there's no noise, there's no agenda. It's just, that's what it is. So we've talked about, of course, I think a blog is the next natural step. There's been a few stories where we, I think Christine comes to mind and Matt, where we could write a book about them. Just crazy, crazy stories. So that could be easily like long blog formats. So I think blog is definitely a natural evolution. Video is so powerful as a storytelling medium. Talked a lot about live events, connecting. Actually, that would be like the real goal, you know, actually getting these people together in the same room or getting other people that are strangers or not even to strengthen relationships and ties. So I don't know, that's kind of my perspective on it. But might have.
Yeah, my list is about the same. Just kind of events and maybe a competitive podcast storytelling.
Okay, well, see, we need
You
to
guys
talk
are
about
gonna-
this for a second. We're gonna name it Narrative Imperative. Just switch the name. That's what I do
It'll
for
be
like.
called-
So
Yeah.
Lucas's company is called Glasslight. I keep joking like I'm gonna start a competing company called Light Glass. I'm so uncreative with my naming, as you can tell. Sorry. So yeah, podcast. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll just call it the way we imperative.
The way we imperative narrative. That sounds so familiar.
That's
One of our, Colton Thomas has been writing for us and like helping with the story gathering. And he was like, I'm going to do a spin-off and like just tell weird stories and call it The Way Most of Us Aren't.
the way some of us are.
Wait, so other people write for it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So how many other people are a part of this with you guys?
Just two right now.
So two other people besides you two?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Wow.
And you might
Yeah, I've
explain
always
kind of
wanted
the
it to be
structure.
more of a team thing, just more than me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to be the face of anything, but it's a community effort. So
Yeah.
I kind of think that like fits our message really well to include like other editors, storyteller, writer people. And yeah, right now we're totaling 4, but kind of have ideas to scale and kind of increase the team over time.
That's awesome.
Because really the story, the interviewing and the editing is the most time consuming part of it. I mean, obviously photos as well, but I wish I could give much more time to this than I can. So that's really been the need to grow, is because there's hundreds of thousands of stories out there. So we just need to expand to be able to capture more.
Has that been the biggest obstacle, is just finding the time to do this? Or if it isn't, what has been the biggest obstacle?
That's
in
been
doing
it
this?
for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, time's a big thing, and also figuring out scope. And we each have a ton of different ideas, but we don't want to do anything poorly. If we're going to do it, we want it to be good.
Yeah.
So like a podcast or video, we don't want to just do like one video and then another one in 8 months.
Yeah.
We do anything, we kind of want to make sure it's like it's going to fit what we're trying to do and kind of get our overall vision. And that's kind of led us to focus on social media and stories and pictures for now, but also open to other forms in the future.
Yeah. I love how intentional, because I'm sure some people could look at this and go, well, this is a nice little side project. But I love like the way you're talking. I mean, it's very intentional. It's very much like this entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, we're going to do this, it's going to be done well, and we want to really have a long-term plan for where this is going. So I love that.
Yeah.
Really cool.
John is one of the most thoughtful. I'm amazed at how he thinks through things, because I live my life kind of on the fly, and he's like got incredible thought out plans and ideas, and he's so detail oriented. We use like this little project management app that I'm always amazed at how he makes that look cool, like just the design. Like, so yeah, he's definitely got
skills,
a mind for that. He really owns it. So.
That's awesome.
I'm definitely a perfectionist. And it's maybe a curse, but
but that speaks to like, even if you do like these, quote unquote projects, these little side projects that maybe don't have any monetary value in and of themselves, but if you do them well, I mean, that is so crucial. I think as creatives, I mean, that's what we're drawn to, but I think anybody is. If the photographs aren't good, I don't care as much, if the stories aren't written as well, I don't care as much. So I love that thought has gone into it.
So it's interesting, because for us, defining success for a project it's pretty simple. I mean, most of us, we want our client to be happy. We want for their goals to be met and all that. But since you guys don't really have a client, this is just more of like a, almost like an outreach. How do you define success when it comes to individual projects?
it is kind of hard to know. Like, we've appreciated all the feedback we've had, and all the comments and shares are awesome. But that is a tough question.
Mm-hmm. I think when I see it making connections and inspiring or encouraging somebody, that's when I feel gratified. Like, this is reaching an audience that needs to hear it. And I think too, like, there's almost a therapeutic aspect of when we're listening to people's stories where they have this sense of validation. And especially if they're talking about something difficult or traumatic, it's kind of like we're witnesses with them and stand with them in that. And so I think the act of doing it is a gift to people. People get amazing photographs, like they get their pictures.
How
John
many
sends
people
them to
use
them.
that for their like business headshot?
Yeah, we're gonna see them all over the place. Yeah.
Not sure.
Her
We'll know
profile
soon.
picture is a photograph I took for the way we are.
I like that a lot, especially seeing that you can almost get immediate results if pardon that language sounds tactless, but having them share just like right from the beginning, taking that first step in the goal that you already want, which is to connect with people. You're connecting with people in order to try to connect with people, which is really, really cool and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I love the goals that you guys are talking about. I can see like the way we are meetup happening or something like that. That's really
Be
awesome.
like, you're the van guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh,
see each other.
That's really cool.
They're all like blindfolded, and then they one comes up, they're like, "Oh my gosh!"
I've seen you.
Like word association.
Yeah.
Van.
Yeah.
The van guy.
You're the van guy. You're the valet person. That's so great.
This podcast is, as we stated in the intro, really geared towards like telling stories and how do different people, creatives and otherwise, you use stories to help them in their own business and their own endeavors. I mean, you guys, this is a direct correlation. Some of these people we interview, it's like the story's in there. They're creatives, but the story's in there. You guys, this is this is what you're doing literally. And so this is so fascinating. Have you guys, what sort of feedback have you guys gotten from non-interviewees? People that haven't been featured
Like
necessarily. Have you guys gotten a lot of feedback from the community, from the
definitely.
state? Yeah.
It's always cool to see how much support people have. Like their friends will share their stories. And then I just always love hearing about people that were touched by a story. Yeah, I think people just love to hear about their friends and then hear about the things going on in Arkansas and just the causes and struggles and highs and lows that we all have.
We've got some followers from out of state, like I think just mainly from our families, friends and family. And, my family's all in Central Florida and John's got family on the East Coast. And just having people like that aspect is cool. I hadn't even thought about that when we started it, just to see like this is a representation of Arkansas. People have messaged me, reach out to me about it. Like, and when I see people around town or friends that I run into, like, what are you doing? Like, what is this storytelling thing? Like, it's so cool. So it's generated a lot of conversation for me on a personal level. So
how many conversations have you guys had where they're like, did you lose your job? Is this like we're trying to do this place?
Is this some crazy entrepreneur?
John, you're a great photographer. What happened? No, it's okay. I'm still doing that.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You had mentioned like just highs and lows of it. And as creatives, like you just always go through those kinds of things. What helps you guys push through during those low times?
You mean like as individuals or through the project?
Just kind of like through this creative process of like going and interviewing people. I mean, obviously there's low points, so to speak, of even walking with somebody through some sort of heartbreak or something like that. What keeps you guys going during like low points, whether that's just going with people into those or just the difficulty of maybe struggling with writing or getting a good shot or figuring out what shot you want to do, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Whenever I'm feeling indecisive, I tend to feel overwhelmed about a task I have to do. Like if I feel busy or stressed or I don't feel like I'm in a good creative space for it, that's really hard to start something. But then I know once I turn on the voice recorder and I'm listening to our conversation, I just start writing. Like once you start, it goes from there and it's easy, So I think getting started for me is like the first step in overcoming that like block. And then of course, collaborating and asking, we're like always, what do you think? What do you think? Like asking each other was really helpful to bouncing ideas off each other.
Yeah. And I think the group part of it too, just having a team of people is really helpful because we all have writer's block or creativity block or just being in a funk. So having other people that can get stories when like we're traveling or just not feeling it has been really nice as well.
Yeah. Are you guys inspired by, just from the photography standpoint or writing standpoint, do you guys have people in those fields that you guys look up to or just has been a cumulative over your life of just pick up bits and pieces of how certain people write?
Oh, I could talk about books I love all day.
What are some books you love, Rachel? Tell us.
I will say like a book that helped me a lot with coming up with interview questions. It's called The Power of Moments by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. And I've told John about this, but they talk about how in our lives we go through these times, these very defining moments. Like you can put your finger on the day of the calendar, like this, my life changed. It was the day that, I got fired or the day that my first kid was born or whatever. So there's these things that are like peaks and pits and transitions that really define us. And honestly, the way that we tell the stories that we tell ourselves about those moments are really important because you can choose to interpret them different ways. And so that was a really neat book for me in terms of understanding what the way that we view our lives, the narrative of our lives, and how we choose to tell those stories to ourselves and to other people. So that's just one that comes to mind. I could talk all day about people I love to read and storytelling and everything. But
I'm not a good reader. Like, I just don't read enough. I feel like I've talked about this every single episode we've done so far. I just cannot. I love what you guys are doing, but like books, I don't know why. I just cannot.
Audiobooks? Have you tried that?
I do a bunch of podcasts. I can do podcasts, which is why you guys should.
No, like
podcasts.
listening to podcasts.
You listening? I don't read a podcast.
You said doing podcasts is what you said.
Oh, I got you. Oh,
never mind.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Let's just move on from this. It was a bad joke. It's a bad joke. Let's keep going.
So, what advice would you guys have for somebody who's wanting to do something like this in other states?
I'd say
competing against you right in the heart of Arkansas.
Get out of here.
Colton's gonna break off and start the way we almost are.
Yeah, I'd say just do it. Like, this all just started as a dream, and it was 2 or 3 years before I found like the person to help me out with it, and then just finally launching it. I think we all have a lot of ideas, and a lot of times nothing ever happens of them. Just gotta do the action and then try to keep up with it from there.
I think when we were first planning for a couple months, we had all these ideas, and we just came to a point where we said multiple times, okay, we just need to do this. Like, we just need, you got to start. You have to be prepared and do your research or do whatever you need to do to see the vision. But the vision it evolves, and you're not equipped really until you start doing it, because you learn from your mistakes and you learn from your success. And so, there comes a point where you need to just
gotta jump.
Yeah, I just gotta jump.
Yeah. That's really, and that's so cool. I love, as we're, freelance filmmakers, and we've sort of taken that jump to just terrifying at times, the whole freelance world. And I love, you guys obviously highlight a bunch of stories, and some of them include business owners. I know you guys did. Amy at Nexus. And that's, I love, what do you guys think about the culture of Little Rock and how it's changing as far as the entrepreneurship and just the amount of younger people who are sort of taking that jump like you guys have with this?
Yeah, I haven't been here too long to kind of know.
Where are you from?
I'm from Pennsylvania.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
My dad grew up in Philly.
No way.
I'm from New Jersey.
Wow.
Sorry,
by that he means he was born there.
I lived for 4 years there. But my relatives, most of my relatives were in Philly. So sorry, we're just connecting like right now. So
Yeah.
it's just we're in Pennsylvania.
We're just taking over the South.
Yeah.
Harrisburg area.
Okay.
So
Nice.
It's a couple hours from Philly
Yeah.
or New Jersey.
Or New Jersey. Or anywhere really.
All the places.
So how long have you lived here?
It's been about 10 years. I lived in Searcy. I went to school there,
Gotcha.
and then just recently moved to Little Rock.
Wow. So you came from Pennsylvania to school
Mhm.
to go to Harding, I guess?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? I know you have a Florida connection too, Rachel. We were on vacation in Tampa, and like somebody saw our Arkansas license plate. They're like, "Oh my word, you guys are from Arkansas." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, my daughter goes to Harding." I mean, it's amazing how they like.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a side conversation.
Harding does draw people from all over the country, all over the world. Like,
Yeah, that's
You
nuts.
just can't escape them.
Yeah. But it seems like you're this. What do you call it? Like photography blog? Like, is that? Photog blog.
Photo blog.
Yeah.
Photo blog. Yeah.
Blog.
It just seems to be coming at this sort of time in history when it's so much. I say easier very lightly, but so much more
accessible
to like start owning your own businesses, whether it's just us, just freelance, got a couple of cameras, you go to work, or it's a brick and mortar. Like, what have you guys noticed about how the Little Rock culture is evolving over the past few years?
I get to be involved. So my job is, we work at the tech park. So I'm already in a very,
Which is downtown Little Rock.
Downtown Little Rock, very entrepreneurial like hub. And it is a startup. I mean, we're still pretty young, and I started pretty soon after the company began. So this world, I never thought I'd be any way talking about something I created or started, like entrepreneurial. I've never had that spirit or mentality, but it's something that's been neat to learn. Like, you can do it. You can learn to do it. It's just a mindset and some grit and connecting with the right people. And then through this project, getting to see like the photography, and then meeting, knowing you guys, working with you guys on video stuff, and then doing a little music too. It's really, Little Rock has a lot of cool stuff happening. And one of the neat things about the way we are is that it was like white space, like no one's doing it. And that's so exciting when you see that. You're like, this is a fabulous idea. People are going to love it. Like, of course we have to do this, and it's the right time. And of course we've got other like similar, you know, the Yarn is a really great initiative, and there's other people doing things that are similar, and people that we want to always be collaborative with and unifying with. But this particular little niche was something that no one had owned yet. So that's always really exciting when you're like, ooh, we get to start this. Yeah.
We're just going to pencil ourselves in there. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. And I love it. And you guys are really bridging the gap of all the divisiveness. I think one of the reasons we can be so angry at people is because we don't understand. And you guys are completely like opening that up and going, well, now you can. Now you have no excuse. This is who I am. So.
And getting past those first layers, like it's so true. Like we all just put up our front, even just unconsciously, not even thinking about it. We just naturally are like, yeah, how are you? I'm fine. Like I'm good. And inside is like, not good. Not great. That kind of thing. But like peeling that back and actually getting the real person is awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So how can people find you? We talked about it a little bit, but where can people find you on?
Well, before we go to that, I just want to say, I want to flip the advice question.
Wow. Lucas, how dare you?
You're doing a closer, and I'm stopping you from doing the closer. Flip the advice question real quick and ask you, not what advice you would give to somebody, but are there pieces of advice that you guys have received, be it along this journey or before or anything like that you've held on to that kind of impacts what you do?
So just throughout my life of like fun and travel that I've done and schoolwork and college and some of my professional stuff at work, I get to tell a lot of patient stories, which I love. But it's neat to see like how your experience accumulates and leads you to a place where you have confidence and skills. And so that's always really gratifying. Another writer that I really admire is Malcolm Gladwell, and like how he takes his stuff is very research driven, and you know he's a nonfiction writer, and he has things that are very helpful for people, but he tends to weave a human element story into whatever he does, which I love. So just learning from people who do work that's like this or similar to this is very helpful. And then just having friends that put you in the right place at the right time and invite you into it is really cool. I mean, I wouldn't be here unless John had come to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" So having that encouragement and that, boost is really huge.
I think it's just to just think bigger than just yourself. And it's just so easy to default into low effort things, or just not asking the hard questions of how your friends are doing. Yeah, just to always encourage one another to just be better versions of yourself, and keep reading longer books.
So far, John, you are making me read more books and introduce myself to random people in parks. And I don't like this.
That'd be good.
I'm okay with it.
I need that. I need to break out my
you
show.
can go with the close.
Can I go with I mean, we can talk about more stuff, I guess. What are your favorite movies?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Probably the good adventure, Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And then not as related, the Bourne. So
Yeah. Hey,
Great one.
we forget about those.
It's true.
I still
Man,
Bourne
they
Ultimatum
kinda-
on my shelf. I saw it last night.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a
I
classic.
didn't say it we didn't ask this question in our intro podcast, which is real shame. Lord of the Rings is my absolute favorite movie. I like that series. I can't pick one, but that series is absolute favorite.
Talk about a good story.
Oh,
like just
So good.
every single element of any story
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I really love, one of my favorite movies ever is Life is Beautiful. It's
yes.
an Italian film. It has everything, same. It just has like drama and romance and loss and humor and talking about when we kind of going back to earlier, we were saying like the way that you tell yourself the stories about your life changes everything. And the way that main character, I won't give it away, but the way that he interprets the events that are happening for himself and his son, really protecting his son from what's going on, is so humorous and wonderful and like just a great film.
In a situation that is like the worst thing ever in the history of humanity, almost. That one, that'll rip your heart out for sure.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this. Denzel Washington's my guy. I have a lot of favorite movies. I have to say, Remember the Titans. It's still up there though. I mean, the soundtrack. Anyway, it's just so good.
Absolute favorite? That's your absolute favorite?
I mean, if I had to pick, I'd probably pick that one.
Really?
But I like, in truth, I like Lord of the Rings much more. But if I had to pick an individual film,
What?
Remember the Titans just gives me the feels when.
This is my absolute favorite movie, but no, this one is.
No, listen. I mean, like, I don't know. They're both favorites.
They're both favorites.
They're both
good.
Quote Brian Regan. Great. No chair. Anyway, I hope we don't get copyright issues for me quoting him. I don't know.
We're not making any money from this. Are you kidding me?
We're going to sue you.
Yeah.
Cool. You can have mine.
That's great.
You can have the laptop.
Yeah. No, that one's mine. You can have Kurt's phone.
It's broken anyway. Yeah, Remember the Titans.
That's a good one. Yeah, I think in cinema, that's kind of an opportunity to put the best storytelling and visuals and just the whole package together. And if it can move you, that's kind of, what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
I talked about this in our intro podcast, but I just saw Toy Story 4 and it's just ridiculous. Like stories are so powerful in any format that you can take toys and it can make you cry in a movie theater. And it's not fair. You shouldn't be able to do that. But that's how stories work. I mean, you take what you guys are doing. You just take this normal human being that everybody passes on the street, nobody gives a second thought to, and all of a sudden, like even with your brother, like our own relatives, I remember hearing stories of, my own sisters and stuff that they went through that I was totally oblivious to growing up. And so it's amazing what something like this, the way we are, what that can do for this community, and just. And honestly, just giving a name to Arkansas. I mean, because I know people have stereotypes about our state, and
but it's Alaska. AR.
Or Arizona. So we both went to Arkansas State University. ASU is obviously the short for it, and Arizona State's like if you Google ASU, Arizona State.
You can't say ASU. You have to do A State. That's because ASU is just Arizona.
That's
State
the only way you
University.
can do it. Anyway, So it's you get so many misconceptions, but you guys are kind of breaking down those well, so people outside of the state can see. Oh, they're not all country people. Like there's some hipsters here.
Right.
And there's like people that live downtown, people that live in the suburb. We're all these different mixes, different races, different languages spoken. I love that.
There's absolutely no stronger medium than a story to change someone's mind and to connect you. One of the things that we have talked about a lot and that we're going to work on is collaborating with people in the city who are, organizations like Our House and like Project Zero that are doing social justice, things that we want to support and tell stories about, because that's the way to inspire change, is by like connecting with someone and saying you have so much in common with them. It just changes you. It motivates you. It realizes you realize I may not be in your exact situation, but I've experienced loss before, and I would never ever want to be my kid to be without a family, right? So it gets you fired up about a cause that you just were apathetic about before or ignorant about, and reading somebody's story is much more appealing than like reading an article about it or, attending some lecture. It just is a way, it's one method of like reaching into people's hearts and kind of tugging on them. So.
Yeah. And reinforcing that people have value even in the midst of normal life. And you guys have featured, pregnant women, you guys have featured ballerinas, you guys have featured business owners, and like in every situation, the resounding theme is going to be, even in this that you may not think has any value, you are valuable and you have value. So that's really awesome. So anyway, back to what I was saying earlier.
So where can they find you guys?
Oh my God.
Swooping in for the closing.
The next episode is just going to be me.
Oh gosh. This is going to be an empty stool with like blood right here.
We've had a change of personality.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have earrings. Start wearing earrings like you. So
nobody can see them.
Oh wait, yeah, you're wearing headphones. Yeah, Lucas has earrings. So
exposed.
Yeah. Anyway, so where can people find you online? Oh my word.
We're on Facebook and Instagram at The Way We Are.
And that's AR.
And AR.
Yeah.
Without the E. And then also thewayweare.com.
Very
Awesome.
cool. So how can people send, I know on Instagram story, you guys ask for suggestions. Is that the best way to send them to you? Do you guys have like an email or something that they can send suggestions to?
Not
Instagram
yet,
message?
but that'll be on the website. Just how and where to submit suggestions, or if you want to be a part of it somehow, or you have a perspective you want to share. Yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely can check any messages on Instagram or Facebook, connect with you over social. But yeah, we want this to be everyone's project in a sense. It really is.
Yeah.
We invite ideas and stories and collaboration. Some of the people who have reached out to us and said, hey, I've got something to say. Those are really powerful because it's coming from a place of conviction for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on. This is exciting.
Yay,
so
thanks for having us.
thewayweare.com, the way we are on the Facebook and Instagram, give them a follow.
Yes.
Check out their stories. If you want to be featured or you know someone who needs to be featured, send them a message.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So glad to be
Great.
here with you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This
This
has
has
been
been
really
fun.
fun.
Thank you for being on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.